everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Plug in Play podcast. I am your host, Henry, and this is our first ever episode back-to-back weeks. What a wonderful thing, right? I will be out of town next week, so I would not be able to produce a typical episode, but I can still give you an interstitial week-to-week episode. So we're going to be doing that for you. On this episode, we, of course, will be talking about EA has finally been taken over by Saudi Arabia. Looks like mass layoffs on the horizon. What's new? We'll be going into that deal, what it means for you, what it means for the industry, and also GTA 6. Have you heard of this game? Anybody heard of GTA 6? I think it's Grand Theft Auto. That's right. The sixth one. Who knew? But they will be having an official launch of their next expose on the game on Netflix exclusively. People seem to be interestingly upset about it. We'll be getting into that, of course, because we have to talk about GTA for clicks. We'll also be going into Neva, a very well critically acclaimed indie game from the studio that brought you Grease? I don't know. We'll figure it out in the impression segment, along with the newest sneaking surprise in the Friend Shop Slop. There's a way to say it, and I didn't say it right, but Friend Slop genre, Big Walk. Played that a bit with a friend. I'm going to tell you all about it in the impression segment. But first, I got some housekeeping to get to, and this is a special housekeeping segment. We added a little bit to it. So, first we'll do the regulars, okay? Just for the uninitiated. Or, if you just needed a reminder, you can follow us on any of your favorite podcast services: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict. I'll get it right one day. And you can leave a review. You can leave it, hopefully, 5 stars. That's the goal. A nice bullseye would be a 5-star. 4-star, hopefully not. Hopefully I do enough for you to encourage 5, but, maybe we can up the production value a little bit somehow for you, depending on your review. So, hopefully 5-star there. You can also follow us on any of your favorite social media. We're on all of them. Your TikTok, your Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, your Instagram, your YouTube, all under the easy to remember Plug in Play Pod 1 account name. It's easy to remember. You can't forget it. So why not give us a follow? While you're there, you can leave us a comment on any of our content. I will read it. I promise. I read them all. There's not that many, so it doesn't take too long. But I will read it, and I will possibly read it out on the show in the comment corner section. You can also, while you're there, you can look in the description. You can leave us an email sending a question if you're maybe a little shy at pluginplaypodcast1@gmail.com. If that is too long, it is in the description, along with timestamps. It's a labor of love. I do it for you. If you don't like something I'm saying, you can jump to something else. And if you want to hear something else more, you can just go right to it. So, on the note of what this mystery item is I'm adding to the show notes, oh, baby, I'm a real influencer now, a real gaming influencer. I have officially partnered with Dubby Energy Drink. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a gamer pushing an energy drink product. Isn't that wonderful? Honestly, just between you and me, probably not the best way to say this, but it's not the best partnership. But I just felt like it was an experience. I've never had a sponsorship, and I just was like, yeah, sure. They were like, hey, we'll take anyone. And I was like, I'm anyone? Sure. I'll most certainly be your partner. I'll sponsor your product, whatever. So you can go to Dubby Energy Drink's website and you can order a product from them, and you can use code PLUGINPLAY. That's right. This podcast's name, plug the letter in and play, and you will get 10% off your order. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. What a deal. You'll still pay 90% of it, but you'll save 10. If you were going to pay it anyway, you might as well. Isn't that awesome? You should be excited. They have Chainsaw Man energy drink flavors. They have Frieren. Do you watch anime? That's what those are. Solo Leveling. That show is probably like way bigger than either Chainsaw Man or Free Ren, but like I don't know, whatever you suit your fancy. You can get a cup. You can get a cup, an energy drink shaker with like the protagonist from Solo Leveling on it. I forget his name, but he's definitely on the cup. It's crazy, dude. And you can save 10% on any flavor. They have like energy drink gummy bears now. It's crazy, man. But you can save 10% on your order. Just remember the code plug and play. And I mean, how can you not? It's so easy. It rolls right off the tongue. But that's fun. I do feel like I am an influencer now. I'm truly an influencer. Did I not give it like 110% there? I felt like I did. If you didn't feel like you needed an energy drink, if you didn't know any better, I probably had a freaking whole shot of Dubby energy drink right before I promoted it. You can't see it, but based on the energy levels, that's probably the highest energy I've ever had on the podcast. Is shilling an energy drink for 10%. That 10% will go to yours truly, by the way. So that's the incentive there. Certainly not an overpriced product for gamers, nerds alike. Enjoy your Dubby energy drink. Believe I'll be putting a link down in the description as well. If you want to just go right to it, you don't even have to remember the code. You just click that link. I'm trying to make it easy on you. Trying to make money out here, man. I got to pay the mortgage. The utilities, they're about to shut off my water. I need to pay with my Duppy energy drink sponsorship. And only with you can I do it. So please allow me to take a shower this evening. I really, really need to. Okay, so that was fun, right? So as I alluded to, let's get into a little bit of a free-flowing conversation before we get into the creative corner, or the comment corner, excuse me. But I will no longer, not that I will no longer, I'll definitely still be doing every 2 weeks. So that's, if you've been following the podcast for more than 2 episodes, you would know that I'm a bi-monthly schedule. So every other week I do this podcast. I have a full-time job. I have other people that sometimes want me in their life. It can get in the way. So I don't always do this on a regular occurring basis of a week. I'm sure most of the podcasts you listen to typically do it on a week-to-week basis, but that's their full-time job. So that's not what I do. But to make it up for you, I try to make it regular. I try to keep it consistent. And in this case, I will not be able to do that. So I obviously had a vacation planned for this upcoming week, and I would miss my normal schedule. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do this to the fans. I'm going to give maybe an abbreviated episode. Hopefully not. I'm going to find a way, I guarantee you. I will find a way to make this a 2-hour episode, as I always do. But in this case, I'm not planning on doing that. I'm going to be trying to make this a shorter episode, even though I'm already like 10 minutes in and I haven't said anything about video games yet. But hopefully it will be a little shorter because it will take me less time to edit, and then I can go enjoy my vacation, and you can enjoy this episode, which is great because it means this news is not going to be as stale. That's always kind of the unfortunate reality of doing of every other week episode is like, oh, well, the news that I had from the past 2 weeks is now really, really old. So it's really only the news that's kind of the most recent that people really care about. But hopefully you're coming for my interpretation on the news, for my my opinions, my insight, and so that's hopefully what you're gaining from hearing that news at that time instead of hearing it hot off the presses. But in this case, it'll be a lot more fresh, maybe a little bit more fresh. And so we'll be going over the news from the past week, and I'll be coming back 2 weeks after this episode premieres, and that's still kind of wobbly, iffy, whiffy, right? Because when I come back, it would typically be a Tuesday that I would post the episode. I typically record, obviously, before that Tuesday, because then I edit and upload and all that. But in this case, Gamescom will be in 2 weeks. So if you're unfamiliar, Gamescom is like the quarter 3 E3. It's in Germany. Jeff Keighley has a big presser during that time. So there's going to be a lot of big announcements, a lot of big showings that we're going to see at Gamescom. I'm really looking forward to it, but I don't want it to literally happen the day that I post the episode and then I have to wait 2 weeks to record an episode on it, because that would make it really, really stale, and I don't like that. So the idea is maybe that episode will be a day or two late. The presser, whenever it happens, I believe it's happening on that Tuesday in 2 weeks, that I'll watch it. I'll do a recording probably after the fact, and then edit, upload, and bada bing, bada boom. So you'll have it a little bit later than usual. But all that to say is my typical schedule is really going to be off. I have hit a very not traditional, very steady cadence of always uploading once every 2 weeks for the past couple of years. And I've been very impressed with myself for that. Even when I had like a very long vacation or something, I would often record an episode before I left and then, upload it, when I was on vacation. So I was always very, very pleased with how I did that. And I believe one time I did like a top like 10 games of the year so far or something like that episode. It was like an episode that had nothing to do with the news, so it wasn't super timely, but so I could just upload it and it would be fine. So that's kind of the sacrifices I have to make for this labor of love that I do, for you, the audience. There's somebody out there that listens to this. So in other words, I hope it's worth it, I think is what I'm getting to. But I will be relaxing on the beach in Mexico. So hopefully you can live vicariously through me, through video games. Maybe, I don't know. Think about it. But anyway, let's get into more video game focused things, right? I know you love hearing me talk about just the logistics of podcasting, right? That's always fun. But, it's been honestly a fairly big week for releases. Big Walk came out. We'll be talking about that briefly on Impressions. Did incredibly well in reviews. Kind of crazy. The one thing I wanted to mention was Beasts of Reincarnation, the new Game Freak game. Came out with pretty poor reviews, sitting at a 73 on Metacritic. What you would typically see is that is mixed, but I mean, in my opinion, that means I don't want to play it. Like, if you are below an 8, you really need to be catering to me specifically in order for me to even consider playing the game, especially nowadays. Like, there's just too many games. But Game Freak has always been known to produce honestly low quality games. This was a game that was, freaking Microsoft was showing off at their pressers. And here we have Game Freak, and everybody was thinking, oh, this is the moment. This is the moment that Game Freak rises from the ashes. They'll be finally putting out something that isn't Pokemon and is actually going to be some AAA awesome experience. And it's like, hey, have you ever looked at Game Freak's track record? Because their track record when not making Pokemon games is they're all mid. Like, none of the games have been particularly well received. And then Pokemon is not even like really objectively good. Like, it has an IP that is legendary attached to it, and like a lot of nostalgia carries that and a lot of charm. But the games themselves, I think most people will agree, are technically a mess and don't evolve very regularly, no pun intended. And so, if even objectively, when you're looking at Pokemon, which is Game Freak's bread and butter, these mother effers don't really make fantastic games. So Beasts of Reincarnation being this like middling flop is not necessarily that big of a surprise, but it did seem like, hey, this company that probably has more money than God is finally going to be able to spread their wings on this, and they were not able to do that. So very unfortunate story for them there. So they're apparently making some updates to it even now, addressing people's complaints. So, like, apparently the pacing for the story was horrible. And, I mean, sorry. Like, I feel like that's pretty easy to fix, and they didn't want to do that. But now they're going to do it post-release, now that everybody's mad about it. So that's all fun and good. But in general, a lot of games are still coming out, and oh my gosh, we will have 101 games coming out in the coming months. In 1 month, we'll have Wolverine, Onimusha, Silent Hill Townfall, I mean, I think the new Trails games come out in like a couple of weeks. It's honestly, it's kind of crazy how many games are going to be coming out in September. And then, of course, everybody's just trying to get out before Grand Theft Auto 6. So we'll get into that mess when that happens. That will be nothing but people talking about that, guaranteed. So one day, but right now, just kind of hold on what you have, like, because there's just so much already, and it's only going to get worse. But let's move into the comment corner. That's right. TikTok has actually been doing very well in the comments. It used to be, it's very funny how the algorithms on every platform kind of ebbs and flows. YouTube used to be my number one platform. Now I get literally 0 views on YouTube. 0. No matter what I post, no matter how I post it, it's always 0 views on YouTube. It used to be Instagram was my number one platform by far. Still have the most followers on Instagram. All 5 of the people following on Instagram. Thank you very much. But a lot of people used to interact with the posts over there, comment, like, whatever. And then all of a sudden, nobody wants to do that anymore. It's all over on TikTok. So you just never know how this stuff is going to work out. But in this case, we have a comment from Mr. How do you even pronounce this? Archeoape? Archeoape? Sounds about right. We'll call him Mr. Ape. So, Mr. Ape, we're talking about Sony yet again. I have a lot of clips going up on discs. This will continue to be a conversation topic for the foreseeable future. We even have Microsoft. They're about to announce, it seems, it's been leaked by multiple sources, a disc to digital program that I haven't talked on this podcast about yet because it just seems so imminent. Apparently, they're going to talk about it in August, but it seems so imminent that it's like, why would I really need to talk about it? It just doesn't seem necessary, because I will talk about it when they officially release it and we have official details of, well, this is happening. So, might as well. But in this case, we're talking about Sony pulling away from digital discs, as we have been for the past several episodes. It's nothing new. In this case, Mr. Mr. Ape, he says, physical discs don't matter anymore. They can literally still gate it. Nintendo cards on Switch 2 don't even have a game on them. They're license cards. Nevertheless is my interpretation of a more intellectual way of saying regardless, because I'm a nerd, of if you have a disc, Sony can still block you from opening their game on their software on their device. Your little disc means nothing anymore. You can't force the game just to run because you have a disc. Not on modern consoles. This is a fair point. In fact, it's objectively correct. A little bit misleading. So this is something I actually have already talked about the podcast because at one point I had an entire episode just around setting the facts straight for physical games. But in this case, people continue to say, hey, Sony can shut off your account. They can completely shut off the hardware. They can shut off the software. They can do whatever the frick they want. Like, it's their ecosystem, and at any point they have a button they can press, and it can all be shut down for you specifically. This is accurate. This is 100% accurate. It is the truth. The problem is that rarely happens. Sony very rarely is like, I'm just going to shut down your console. The one time the normal instance that they're going to do that is if you start pirating the frick out of games and they find out, or you start cheating in a bunch of online games or something like that. They'll ban your console. They'll ban your IP because you're essentially a bad actor. If you use the console in a legal way, they will not do this. They can shut down their games and software, yes. That is the same for literally every game. Has nothing to do with physical. It is, like, I don't know, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare on Xbox 360. Like, technically, they can shut down the servers for that because it's an old game. Nobody's playing it anymore. They're on to the newer stuff. I get it, right? But in this case, most people, I mean, it's a known issue, right? We're not here freaking out about that. So I think that that's a little bit disingenuous. The point is I do understand what he's saying. is that games can be taken away. Discs don't matter. Like when you pop a disc in, most of the time nowadays you're downloading a game, most of the game is not on a disc, it's on a patch. You have to install it or something like that. So if you did have just the disc, the game would likely not play for a significant number of titles. Not all of them. I don't even think it's a majority of them, but there are a good number of titles nowadays where you do have to download something in order for the game to even work. So it's really more so of an unlock and a proof of concept than an actual game that's on the disc itself. Here's what I wanted to say. Are physical games useless? Absolutely not. There are still 110% use cases for physical games that are never going to be held by digital games. Or if not never, it will be very difficult for them to take over that space. So for instance, ownership specifically and, buying, selling and trading. That is a massive thing that is incredibly difficult for digital. I am a proponent that can still be done. Something like an NFT has shown that that is absolutely technologically possible. And digital ownership, being able to trade and sell, absolutely, it's possible, but it is very difficult right now in this ecosystem. I don't think anybody's really trying to move in that direction. Physical games, you still can do that. This stuff is absolutely still ownable. It's absolutely still sellable. The physical discs allow more retailers to be competitive within the market space. So Walmart, Amazon, Target, all those guys. Sony is technically competing for them when they put a game on their digital storefront, because I can go as an alternative and go to Walmart and pick up a copy of their game, and it could be cheaper. And Walmart has more incentive to get rid of that game because they need to recycle shelf space, while Sony never has an incentive to actually discount the games on PlayStation because those games have infinite shelf space. Like you'll always be able to go and download a copy of Ghost of Tsushima from the PlayStation Store. Like that's just always going to be a thing until Sony decides to remove it. But why would they? Because it's just a potential for them to make revenue at some point. Whereas Walmart has to have things continue to cycle, so you're more willing to get more bargain bin, purchases out of that. Collectibles. I think that physical obviously is the best way to collect. Can you collect things digitally? Yes. But I am not looking at my Steam library right now and I'm like, ooh, this collection of games that I have. If anything, it's a burden. It's a burden of everything I have to play that I'll never be able to. But like, I can technically pass down a collection. I can sell a collection. I cannot do that with a Steam library. I will not bequeath my Steam library to my grandchildren. F that. They won't care about my Steam library. Granddad, why did you leave me this login password to your Steam account? I don't care about Leisure Suit Larry magna cum laude. I don't care about it. Like all of your porn games, I don't care. So there are definite use cases for physical that will not be easily replicatable by digital. But in a lot of cases, I do see that there are problems with physical, just like there are problems with digital. I don't think that that makes physical a bad alternative. I don't think that you should be demonizing physical or saying that physical is stupid. If people use physical, they're dumb. But I do think it is something we still have to focus on, making sure that digital can take over for those issues that we have for physical. Just like Microsoft is doing the disc to digital, trying to give people ownership of their physical games and making them digital rights as well, or digital licenses as well. We need to understand that if we can fix the issues with digital that make it lesser than physical, then I'm going to have less of a problem with this. In fact, I may have no problem with this. It will be a collector's item for sure, but it won't be this huge detriment to my particular purchasing patterns, you know? I think I'll still be hurt by the digital ecosystem and the lack of competition. But again, I think the further we get into this, the more potential players, the bigger Steam becomes as a potential competitor to Sony. You know, we'll start seeing better sales. We'll start seeing better stuff happen between these platforms that will take years. And I think there will be pain points in between the transition between physical to digital, but it's still possible. I am cautiously optimistic of that. It's just really unfortunate that I think it's going to take a long period of time, and I'm still patient enough to hope that Sony is considering more consumer-friendly practices moving forward for people who have a large physical collection or are less willing to transition to digital. We still don't know. And Sony's not been very good at communicating these things, but I'm hoping that that's the case. So, thank you, Mr. Arcape, for your comment. I think that it's, and these are the comments that I like to read, are comments that kind of spark a thought in me that I'm like, oh, that's interesting thing. I'd like to discuss that. I'd like to kind of talk through that. And in this case, it was, are there problems with physical games? You know, I think people are all out here saying, well, physical has its benefits and we'll be losing that. And it's like, yeah, sure, but like physical also has its pitfalls. And we're not always referring to those because it doesn't really help our narrative, but I also don't think it should subtract from it either. Excuse me. So thank you, Mr. Arcape, for the wonderful comment. Even though it was a little pointed, a little aggressive, but you know, like I said, it's I appreciate it regardless. So next, on to the news. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the news section, one of my favorite sections. So obviously, because we're only doing a 1-week segment or a 1-week show in this case, we have a lot less news, but you know, you can technically cherry pick, and there's gaming podcasts that do daily news episodes, and they find a way to make it happen, and it's, you know, perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable, but they start talking about stuff that I just am like, I don't know. If I was looking to fill time, I'd talk about it, I guess, but I don't need to talk about like, hey, did you know Tomodachi Life sold pretty well? It's like, okay, I mean, that's great for Tomodachi Life, I guess. I don't think it's really a talking point. You know, is it really that cool that Tomodachi Life sold well? I guess it is, but I mean, who really cares about how Tomodachi Life sold? I mean, you know, I don't know. You can probably talk about that for 15 minutes if you made me, but I just think it's not that big of a conversation topic. In this week, we have the two big ones. In this case, beginning of the week, EA has announced that it has officially completed the takeover by the Saudi Development Fund. That's right. So, as we have reported months ago at this point, EA was bought out by the Saudis, as, you know, normally happens with most video game companies nowadays. Either Tencent or the Saudi Arabia will be taking over your company. Just seems to be the norm. But in this case, it was a very interesting deal. EA, obviously one of the biggest game publishers in the world, being bought up by the Saudi Arabia Prince Oil Fund, whatever it is. Again, it's a long name, but they finally got bought, and it's unfortunate. Nobody likes people being bought by people who murder journalists and stuff like that. That's unfortunate. But for the most part, the Saudis have been pretty, you know, they've been pretty lax about the companies that they've bought. It's really trying to diversify their funds. So they realize one day that their oil will run out. And actually, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is actually a pretty big gamer. Like, that is, like, where I believe these purchases are typically coming from. Like, there's a reason that they've bought up a bunch of video game companies is specifically because the Saudi Crown Prince, like, really likes video games. And so that's why he was like, yeah, I'll buy EA. So, in this case, the big issue with this, really, the problem here is, sure, it's being owned by the Saudis who freaking murder journalists because they don't like what they say about them. Yeah, that's a problem, okay? We can all agree with that. But in this case, there's a lot of financial stuff that goes into this that makes it really messed up. So, Let's get into it. Specifically, this is coming from VGC, so I'll be quoting from them from here. So, quote, "The deal is the largest ever leveraged buyout in history. A leveraged buyout is an acquisition where most of the cost is covered by borrowed money, with the target company's own assets and future cash flow used as security to pay back the loan." So, if that didn't make sense to you, I'll put it in a bit more straightforward terms. Saudi Arabia has bought EA, and EA basically has to pay back the loan, which is, so it's all on them, basically. So let's get into why that's such a big problem is with the numbers. Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier posted on Blue Sky that this amount is a total debt for EA of around $18 billion, with the company having to pay around $1.8 billion per year in interest alone. Okay, Henry, that's a lot of money, but is that big of a deal? Okay, this is where it gets real hairy. Schreier reports that EA's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, or EBITDA, is around $1.5 billion, meaning that it can just about cover the interest payments without reducing the debt. So they will not eat into principal. Every penny that EA makes from here on will be going only into interest. And it will not be able to eat into the principal of the loan of an $18 billion loan at all. So what does this mean? Okay, that sounds like a bad deal. Does that not sound like a bad deal? If somebody said, hey, here's a loan, and every year your entire income is just going to go into interest, you'll never even be able to pay back the principal, what would I say to that? I would say, oh, I don't think I'm taking that loan. That sounds like a bad deal, brother. So what are they going to do about that? Well, they told investors. So, quote, "As such, the company has reportedly told debt investors that it's looking to make cuts to reduce its annual expenses." This is a quote from Jason Schreier. EA's annual EBITDA is around $1.5 billion, which should be enough to service the interest payments. But the publisher has told debt investors that it will cut $700 million in annual costs, including $170 million in organizational efficiencies, per Bloomberg. In other words, mass layoffs. Wah, wah. So, let's recap. EA gets bought by the Saudis using a leveraged buyout, the largest of all time, an $18 billion loan that EA themselves will have to repay. The interest on this loan is more than they make a year. So they will have to cut costs, and they will have to increase profits in order to even bite into this loan. So it's a $700 million cost cut is what they're looking to make. So essentially, they will maybe have this loan paid off in 15 years. Just kind of quick head math on that. That's a pretty big chunk of change. Long time to get that money back, that interest paid. And that is kind of scary. It means EA really wanted out of this freaking public market thing. They really wanted somebody to foot the bill. And it's no surprise. EA has become far more conservative with their games recently. It used to be, I remember, what a time. E3 used to be, you used to get press conferences from Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, Bethesda came in kind of towards the end, Ubisoft, and EA. And EA, I remember when I first started watching press conferences at E3, it was an amazing press conference. They would show off Mass Effect, they would show off Dead Space, they would show off Dragon Age. You'd see all sorts of cool games coming out of EA. At one point, they were publishing Brutal Legend from Double Fine. So their showcases had stuff for hardcore gamers. Sure, they always had, here's your next FIFA game or whatever the frick, but like they always had games for hardcore gamers. And eventually, slowly, those press conferences kind of started to trickle down to, oh, we're only talking about the sports games. Oh, don't you have a Mass Effect game in development? Yeah, that's like 5 years off. Like, we'll show you some concept art for it if you're that interested. But yeah, mostly we're just going to do sports games now. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. So EA kind of turned into the sports guys. And then they kind of started making, they still have Respawn. So they got something like Apex Legends in their back pocket, making them recurring revenue. I'm sure they're very happy about that. They have the Star Wars Jedi games that they're producing with Respawn as well. So Respawn has really become like kind of their crown jewel studio. But I still would have to imagine that those sports games make far more money than the Jedi games, or I don't know if they make more money than Apex. I'd have to look at the numbers on that, but probably in a general sense, they probably do. So this is understandable that EA has pivoted hardcore into just being a sports franchise because they can crank those games out. It's probably a low cost of development because not much changes in those games year to year. They have a formula that they can continue to pump out one after another, and it's pretty easy for them, right? It's not bad. That's not bad at all. Everybody's happy, right? But the hardcore gamers who want a BioWare game, but like again, those have not been doing very well. I mean, the last two BioWare games were Dragon Age Veilguard, which did not do well, and Mass Effect Andromeda, which did not do well. So like, what do you expect from a Ship of Theseus studio that has probably lost most of their people? You probably don't get any good games anymore, or you just shut the studio down. At this point, I really think EA is so far beyond that stuff, and everybody's kind of like, yeah, what even is BioWare anymore? I remember it used to be like EA can't shut down BioWare. The bad blood on that would just be so horrible. Like people would never forgive them, and it's like at this point, I don't think anybody is really clamoring for more BioWare stuff. Like it's just kind of, obvious they're not a very good studio anymore. They don't have the mojo, and those IPs should really just be farmed out to somebody else who wants them, kind of like how Baldur's Gate 3 was. That was farmed out to a studio that could do a good job with it, and they did a good job with it. So, in any case, what does it mean for EA moving forward, other than the mass layoffs, which, hey, everybody loves, right? Unfortunate. I'd say if you're at EA right now, get your resume ready, start throwing it out there to people because, hey, your name could be out there, unfortunately. So mass layoffs, well, other cost-cutting stuff, who knows? It probably canceled a few games, whatever games weren't sports games. But in general, they're going to have to be really pushing for profits. So to reiterate, EA is being bought by the Saudi Arabian government. What does this mean for you? It means they are going to be trying to milk you for every penny you're worth because they have to pay back an $18 billion loan that their entire annual revenue cannot even sustain the interest payment on. So you think that, FIFA Ultimate costs a lot of money now and is predatory now and is trying to get you to spend every dime you're worth now? That is going to be tenfold. They are going to have to be making so much more money on you. So they are not going to be making these crazy bets anymore. Like, it is only going to be safe bets. What is a safe bet? A sports game. A game that is pretty much an annual guarantee of being one of the top 10 best games in the world in terms of sales. A game that is a surefire formula that just changes slightly from year to year and they don't really have to tweak that much. Why in the world would they make another Dragon Age? A series or a franchise that hasn't proven that it has a fan base that is willing to support it, and does not have the team that is able to make it and isn't producing profits anymore as much as these live service sports games are guaranteed to do. That just simply is not a game that they're ever going to put a bet on anymore. Something like a Dead Space, that is old hat. They are never going to touch that franchise ever again because, why would they? It doesn't make money. It's proven that it doesn't make money. So EA is not only going to stop making the games that you probably want them to make, that you're clamoring for them to make, which I think, let's be real, I think the hardcore audience has really moved away from them even expecting EA to ever do that again. And they're going to try to wring you dry. Any amount of money they can get from you, they're going to try to. And hey, good luck to them. I think when you make a deal like this, like, you better have a plan of action in how you're going to really increase profits and really decrease expenditure. And it's unfortunate that layoffs have to be a large part of that, but hey, here we are. It's just video games are just unsustainable. Even one of the biggest publishers in the world could not figure out how to do it without the Saudi oil fund coming in and giving them a lot of cash. So, here we are. That's just the gaming industry nowadays. But anyways, it'll be an interesting move in the future for EA. I think if you're a hardcore gamer, I think you've already probably stopped following most of what they do. But hey, maybe you can cross your fingers you'll get a great Mass Effect game. I wouldn't hold my breath though. All right, in our final news story, we have GTA 6 is coming to Netflix. Not in that way. Well, it's technically already come to Netflix. So GTA has had several partnerships with Netflix and put their games out on their mobile platform. If you were unaware, you can actually download games on Netflix from your phone as part of your subscription. So just in case you didn't know that, I don't think many people do. But in this case, GTA will have an exclusive extended look on Netflix for 6 hours before it is put on YouTube and Rockstar's website. That's on August 27th at 12 p.m. PST and 3 p.m. EST. Now that is kind of weird, right? GTA exclusively on Netflix? Extended look, huh? Well, it's kind of weird. You got to have a subscription to do that, right? But let's be real. I mean, that's how a lot of stuff has worked. I mean, if you go to San Diego Comic-Con, you got to pay a ticket price to get in and see a Marvel Avengers trailer or, some exclusive scene that the public isn't even ever going to see. So, we have had stuff like that before. This is not that egregious. There are people freaking out about it, and I don't understand that. It seems, it's unfortunate, I guess, but hey, 6 hours? Am I going to freak out that much about waiting 6 hours? I don't know. This just seems like a nothing burger. If you're really upset about it, it just seems like, okay, I mean, do you really need clicks that bad on GTA 6 content? I guess, hey, we're all out here making the grind as content creators, am I right? But I don't know. I don't feel the need to do that. I'll talk about GTA 6 because I know people want to talk about it, but I'm not going to say, just some inflammatory bullcrap just because. In this case, I think the deal makes sense for all parties involved. Take-Two's going to get a massive chunk of change from Netflix. Netflix wants to promote their service as being more video game focused. They want to probably also tie in the name Grand Theft Auto to Netflix, one of the biggest entertainment platforms and one of the biggest entertainment games of all time, kind of coming together and sharing brand awareness. Everybody kind of wins there, and Netflix is going to be something that's going to appeal to a much more broader audience. It's going to put it in front of GTA 6 in front of a much more diverse crowd than YouTube would, which is more so going to feed it to GTA's existing audience, whereas there is no doubt in my mind that GTA 6's expose on Netflix is going to be one of the top 10 most watched things that day or whatever the case is. And guess what? Your mom's going to see that and she's going to say, "Oh, Jimmy, what's this Grand Theft Auto 6 I see on my Netflix? It's right next to Bridgerton, my stories, and I was just wondering what it is, And so now she's talking about it, and everybody hears about GTA. So they already also have an existing partnership. Like I said, iOS versions of the GTA franchise have been added to Netflix in the past. So, I mean, like, this just kind of makes sense for all parties, right? I mean, as a consumer, yeah, I guess I don't love paying a subscription to watch a trailer, but again, like, bro, I don't know. I don't care that much about GTA 6. I already have a Netflix subscription. It's not that big of a deal, Like, if they were like, hey, I mean, like, I don't know. There's people on YouTube that are like, I'm going to put this video behind a paywall. Come check out my subscription, and you can only watch this video. But I mean, I guess that's a little bit different. It's more so you're getting that content exclusively. This is an ad for a game, but like, which it seems a little dystopian in a way, right? We're paying for an ad, but I think you're paying to be a part of a moment is probably the most generous interpretation of this. Everybody's going to be watching this at the same time. It's going to premiere at the same time, and so everybody's going to be watching it at the same time. Could that be the same thing with YouTube? Yes, but it's going to be a much more focused audience. I still feel no real need to do this. Like, if I didn't have a Netflix subscription, would I be paying $25 or getting a 25 or a free 7-day trial or whatever to watch this? No, I think I'd wait 6 hours. Not only that, I don't even think you'd have to wait 6 hours. I think as soon as this thing goes up, it is immediately going to be stripped and put on YouTube or on Twitter or Instagram or whatever your favorite social media platform is. It's going to be immediately put there. You won't even have to wait the 6 hours. So, I don't know. This just seems like such a nothing burger. Like, I don't know. We've had weird trailer things. Like, what are the Game Awards if not just a glorified way to ingest trailers? I don't know. Like, sure, there's a difference between just ingesting trailers as like a hobby and ingesting trailers as a pay for service. Like, that's weird. It's weird when you think about it objectively. It's weird to pay money to watch a trailer, but at the same time, like, it's also not that big of a deal. I don't know. Grand Theft Auto just has the way of like making people freak out about freaking nothing, dude. I wish I cared more about GTA. It's so crazy to me watching everyone talk about GTA and all the analysts, every industry personality, you will hear them say, this is the game that's going to turn the gaming industry around. Everybody is going to be playing this. There's going to be a work shortage during this time because people are going to be all taken off sick to play GTA. I'm like, bro, I wish I cared this much about GTA 6. I have always been of the opinion like GTA games are just kind of another open world game. There's a million open world games on the market now. There's a million open world games that have tried to be GTA. Like, I get like their story, their writing, it's all great. But like up to this point, I've just kind of found them to be sandbox games, and I would much rather have like a crazier, more wacky, zany, interesting sandbox game. Like, I would much rather play a Saints Row than a Grand Theft Auto 6. Personally, I think I'd have more fun. Am I gonna play GTA 6? Most likely. Yeah, like, I'm not gonna sit here and freaking say I hate the game. I don't. But like, I've played Grand Theft Auto 4. I didn't finish it. I didn't like it. I played Grand Theft Auto 5. It was probably the most fun I've had playing a GTA game. But even then, I was like, I could be convinced that this is like not the best game of all time, most certainly. Like, I'd much rather play like a Red Dead Redemption. Like, to me, that's a far more interesting game because just conceptually, I'm doing something other than just driving a car around, the city like I do every day going to work. Like, it's not as interesting. Sure, you're shooting cops or whatever, but like, I don't know. It just never really grabbed me like that personally. So I wish that I had the same level of enthusiasm as it seems the entire world does for GTA 6. I'm interested, very much curious about what this product ends up being. It's the most expensive media ever created, ever conceived. I'll play this game just to see what that means, right? But like, I can't say I'm like chomping at the bit to play this. I don't know. I don't have the same level of love in my heart. It seems that most people do for GTA. I don't know. That's just, it's interesting. A part of this was Take-Two's financial statements. They came out today, or Friday is when I'm recording this episode. But they came out and they had a few. Mr. Strauss Zelnick, the CEO of Take-Two, had a few quotes that kind of were being picked up by people that I noticed. He's a big fan of streaming. That was a big one. Specifically, he more so is a believer that it will just make the audience of gaming grow significantly. We've obviously seen streaming not be very successful in the past. Google Stadia, Amazon's Luna service. None of these have really taken off with the general public. But I think in time, that is going to be the dominant way to play video games. Why would you, once we have an internet infrastructure that can handle a game streaming easily, why wouldn't you do that? That just kind of makes sense. You don't have to have a console, you just have a smart TV, and then it lowers the barrier of entry significantly, because then people without the need or want to buy a console or a gaming PC, but they do have a TV, because what American household doesn't, they can just play a game on their TV, or maybe even stream it to your phone. Have a little controller you hook up to your TV or your phone, Bluetooth, and bada bing, bada boom. You're a gamer now, and you never wanted to be. So, there's a large potential to increase the gaming audience simply because the barrier of entry is lower. So I understand that. The other big choice quote that was going around from Mr. Zelnick is talking about the pre-order situation. Essentially, pre-orders significantly outweighed what they thought was going to happen. You people sicken me. Why are you buying a game, pre-ordering a game? One, there was already a controversy around this game being like too much money. People are freaking out about that. Number two, we haven't even seen gameplay of this game. You're pre-ordering it in droves. Probably one of the most pre-ordered, if not the most pre-ordered video game of all time. And you haven't even seen what the game is yet. You literally are just like, I know this is going to be good enough. I'll buy it right now. It's like, guys, we don't have to pre-order anymore. The whole point of pre-ordering, when pre-orders were a thing, which I guess they still are, is, like, you would be reserving a copy of the game so that you knew you could get it at the day of launch. Because when physical copies were the typical go-to way to buy a game, there was only a limited number of them. Digital copies, it's infinite. You can download as many licenses as you want infinitely for a video game. So there's no need to do that. You don't have to do that anymore. So you can just buy the game the day it comes out and know that you can still get it, and know that it's not effed at launch, or it's actually fun when reviewers play it, or whatever the frick. You don't have to be in any rush, but people rushed. They ran to purchase this game before it came out, and they didn't even know what it was. You guys, come on. Come on, you guys. We can do better than that. We don't have to be mindless consuming sheep. It doesn't have to be like that anymore. But hey, we're gamers. Gonna happen. But he did not give any exacts on that in this call with investors on what the numbers were. And I understand he's trying to be conservative. He's not trying to tank the stock price or give unrealistic expectations to investors. If they thought that the pre-orders were better than they were, or vice versa, it could affect the stock price. So he basically said, hey, pre-orders were great. We're not going to comment on exactly what they are, because, hey, a pre-order is not exactly a purchase. You can still technically cancel a pre-order at any time, and we don't get the money for those pre-orders until the game comes out and the player actually gets the item, which makes sense. So Why would you tell investors, oh, yeah, we have 10 million pre-orders when half of those people could cancel for one reason or another? You don't know. They're not going to. If anything, the pre-order count is simply going to go up. But hey, I respect a conservative CEO rather than one that's trying to mislead investors and trying to get the stock price to just inflate artificially. I think this game has no chance of being a disappointment at this point. So, I mean, but hey, I can always be wrong. But I just simply don't see that happening anytime soon. So, very interesting couple of quotes from him, but that's in general the GTA 6 talk. We'll continue talking about GTA 6. Guaranteed, because of course we will. It's GTA 6. So look out on the horizon for more GTA 6 talk. All right. On to impressions. It's not my favorite part of the show. I like dissecting the news and talking with everybody a little bit more. But in this case, we have 2 impressions. Didn't have as much time to play games this week as I would normally. A lot of family stuff going on, a lot of work stuff going on, so it kind of ate into my video game time. But I did manage to play a couple of games. One of which was Neva. Neva, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. That's your karaoke segment for the Plug and Play podcast. Please comment below if you would like me to continue with my dulcet tones on the next episode. We can make it a recurring segment. But Neva is an artsy game. It is an 87 on Metacritic, and I've been on record as saying normally if you have an 85 or above on Metacritic, it's a game you should at least try. Normally if you start getting into 87, holy frig, like that's a good game. Like, I don't think many people are going to argue with you here, right? And I have, over the course of time, doing this podcast and talking about games, I've kind of come to the conclusion. I've kind of come to the conclusion that critics, normally that Metacritic number means something. It kind of does. Normally it does. I love arguing with critics. I love kind of poking fun at them every once in a while. We all love video game journalist talk. Hey, these guys aren't real gamers, whatever the case is. But I have kind of found that I generally agree with them. If a general consensus around most video game reviewers is this game is good, it's typically pretty good. If the general consensus around a video game by journalists is this game is bad, it's typically kind of bad. So Neva being an 87, I said this has got to be good, right? 87? That's one of the higher reviewed games of that year. That's crazy. So I had access to it for free as PlayStation Plus Extra, and I was like, yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. Not only that, it's only 4 hours long. I think it took me less than that because I was kind of trying to speed through it. And yeah, I was able to beat it in 3.5, something like that kind of hours, and a very short experience. This is from the studio that brought you Gris or Grease. I did not figure out how to say it by the time we got to impressions, but it is kind of similar in terms of its very beautiful art style. So Gris or Grease is basically what I like to call an interactive screensaver. It is very similar to another game I played called Artful Escape, in which you are moving a character through environments and jumping on and over things, but it's minimal interaction at most, and the real draw is just like looking at the game and being like, ooh, this is very pretty, and that's kind of the entire game. And so I remember I tried Gris out on Game Pass, and that was it. Like, I was like, I'm good. I played it for maybe all of 20 minutes, and I was like, yeah, this is not fun. This is just kind of an art piece game, and I don't really give a frick about it. It's not really fun. There wasn't much story. There wasn't much gameplay, and, like, really the art style was pretty, but I didn't think I was looking at anything phenomenal or anything like that. It wasn't like I was going to see the Mona Lisa or something like that. So I pretty much dropped it pretty quick. Neva was a game that I was like, okay, it looks like they're putting gameplay into this. Neva is somewhat inspired by Miyazaki films. So you may have Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, all those good things. There's clearly influences here from those source materials. And hey, the art is absolutely beautiful. I think Neva is an incredibly beautiful game. It looks like kind of a piece of art in motion, and it's great. So you play as like a swordsman who's traveling through the forest and fighting the darkness alongside a wolf cub companion. As the game progresses, the wolf cub grows older, so you start off with a young wolf cub, and it's not really helping you out very much. It's, not it's like it can't even jump across gaps. It's really struggling to do just about anything. You're having to protect it. And then as it grows, oh, well, now it's starting to really kind of pull its weight upon, then you get into a point where it's like, oh, actually, I'm way more powerful now because of this wolf companion that I have. And hey, maybe. Oh, wait, I've lost that wolf companion? Oh, now I suck again. I wish I had my wolf companion back. This is all done really well. This was obviously what I thought was going to happen throughout the entire course of the game. As soon as I started the game and it was like, oh, here's your wolf companion. You're going to be helping this wolf companion and they'll be helping you. I was like, I already know the trajectory. Like, I've already seen this trajectory. I already know exactly what's going to happen here. This is I can't imagine a world in which you surprise me with this game. And yeah, I was not. This game ends in a way that I kind of saw coming. If anything, it had a somewhat confusing ending based on how simple it was. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? And when I put it together, I was like, why did you need to tell the story like that? Like, I guess that's a reveal technically, but I don't think it really is. I'm not going to spoil exactly what it is, but I mean, there is technically like a somewhat twist ending. And like I wasn't particularly taken by the story. I thought that it was still conveyed very well. Like, I did like Neva because of the gameplay interactions that you have. Seeing the progression of Neva and then having Neva be a incremental part of your combat, and the game honestly handles gameplay pretty well. It's very solid. Combat is solid, not the best combat of any game I've played. Very simple, but it does what it needs to. Platforming is the same. It's very simple, but it does what it needs to. You have a double jump and an air dash and a dodge, and it's like, okay, like that's enough to be good. Like, that's enough to be good. This is not going to be my favorite movement of any game ever, but it's going to be good. Like, I have enough movement here to be satisfied. There's puzzles and platforming challenges that you have to kind of deal with as you go through the game. None of these are like particularly mind-blowing, but a lot of them are like enough for me to go like, oh, that's pretty good. And that's pretty much Neva. That's Neva in a nutshell, I'd say. And what you may have heard me say over and over about this is, yeah, this game's good. It's not really great, but it's serviceable. Like, it does what it needs to, and it kind of gets in and gets out, and that's your experience. I played this game for free, so even as a guy who played this game for free, didn't have to pay a dime, I'd say I had a good time with it. I enjoyed my time with Neva. Is this an 87? And that's where we were kind of getting to with the whole critic talk, is I do not think it is an 87. It's like an 84, maybe an 83 if I was really upset. If I was really mad, like, this game would be an 83. But I think this is an 84. 87, we're borderline looking at one of the best games of last year in terms of reviews. It's one of the better indie games in a minute. And it's technically published by Devolver Digital, so it's not really indie, but it's close enough in my book. But like, in this case, I just don't think I felt the same way as a lot of people did playing Neva. People seem to have a lot more emotional attachment to Neva than I did. I thought it was fine. It didn't really blow me away. Some people thought that the gameplay was far more exceptional than I did. I thought there is no complaint that I have with Neva, but it does not hold any place in my heart that I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a really cool thing they did, or they did that better than some other game. Like, I don't feel that about really anything that Neva did. The only thing that I can say is, like, genuinely well done in this game is the art style. The art's beautiful, and I appreciate that. But in terms of gameplay, in terms of story, in terms of platforming, movement, everything, this game is good. But I'm not gonna say I'm gonna sit here and say it's an 87. Like that's pretty high. So in all honesty, I feel like this is one of the first games in a while that I've looked at and I've been like, I really don't agree with critics very much. And I wish I did, but I'm much lower. I'm much lower. I think this game is closer to an 8 than a 9. So, I don't know. It seems like a big difference to me. 9 is like this is one of the best games of the year. 8 is like you'll like it, but you may not love it. And I feel like that's much closer to where Neva falls. Okay. Next, Big Walk. Big Walk. This is the new game from the Untitled Goose Game developers. I had the fortunate chance to play the game for an evening with my good friend Alex. We've been trying to have some video game nights scheduled once a week because we both love video games. Can't fault him there. And in this case, it was free day one through PlayStation Plus Essential, which is not typical for PlayStation. Normally, the game is free through PlayStation Extra, which means you have to pay a little bit more. But in this case, it's free for Essential. So we were like, hey, why not? Let's try it out. Big Walk, I'll just go ahead and say I did not care for the previous game from the developer. Untitled Goose Game, in my opinion, was pretty boring. It was boring. It wasn't very fun. It seemed to simply get off on the meme appeal of the game, which I honestly have to say the internet took and ran with it. Like I don't think the meme appeal of Untitled Goose Game is worth the talking points that game got. Like yeah, sure the name of the game is wacky, but the game itself really doesn't have like a, in my opinion, significant sense of humor. You're essentially playing a goose that is kind of an a-hole and like messes with people. But like I wouldn't even say that's like really what the game is truly about. And I wouldn't say it's even fun to really do that most of the time. I don't know. It just felt like they really lucked out with Untitled Goose Game. But in this case, they seem to double down a little bit more on the goofy aspects of it, at least with the player characters of this. So you play as like weird, we were calling like weird little bird people, but they're really like three circles stacked on top of each other and have little beak looking things that vibrate whenever you talk. So in this case, it is a co-op game. You can play with 2, 3, or 4 people. And I'd actually recommend trying to get more people to play. Get as many people to play as you possibly can, because as we were going through this game, we were racking our brains with like, oh man, this would be really, oh, if we had more people, we could do this, we could do that. There would be really interesting ways to kind of navigate this world and interact with things. But Big Walk is literally about you just walking around a big open environment, and there are puzzles kind of scattered throughout the open world, and you need to solve these puzzles to collect items to then open gates to access more areas within the world. What makes this such an interesting experience is you have to use proximity chat, or at least you can use proximity chat. It's highly encouraged. So proximity chat is, if you aren't familiar, where if you are close to somebody, you can hear them. And if you're standing right next to them, you can hear them very well. And the further you get away from them, the harder it becomes to hear until they get so far away you can't hear them at all. So it's almost like you're in a real world environment with them. And that means that this game really tries to double down on this in a million different ways. And I really appreciated it. A lot of games recently have been trying to take advantage of proximity chat, and I think it's one of those things that we really need more of. Like it's such a fun feature. And I know that when if I was a game developer and I was like, what's going to turn people off of my game? One of the first things I would say is, well, they want to talk with their friends. Like, of course they want to talk with their friends. If they don't talk with their friends, then they're not going to want to play. And I think that proximity chat kind of answers the question of that is, no, you can still definitely play with your friends, and you don't have to talk with them 100% of the time, and it still can be a very fun experience. And I think Peak, the Steam game that blew up last year, definitely proved that had proximity chat, and that led to a lot of the game's more viral moments. But in this case, Big Walk, you have proximity chat, and you have various ways of communicating with each other. You can raise your arms, point your fingers, and jump, and that's pretty much about it. And in this case, that's all the materials you have to communicate, and you have to utilize those to solve the puzzles. So there would be times where, like I would be on one side of a wall and my teammate could not hear me, and I'd have to point at a switch. I would have the information of what switch needs to be pressed, and I'd have to point through a window at what switch needed to be pressed, and my partner would go and be like, "Is this it?" And I would raise my arm to confirm, like, "Yes, that's the one. Press that one." What it eventually happened is you get through the initial area, and there's one of the first moments where the game was like, you're not supposed to always be together, is I found a button and I pressed a button, and this light came on the other end of the map, and my teammate used binoculars and saw, oh, well, what's happening is a box is opening on the other end of the map. But the box only stayed open as long as I was holding that button. So I had to send my teammate over to the box to get the collectible and come back while I was holding the button. So we had to split up. But like, it gets to a point where that's a very simple example, right? It gets to a point where we started seeing these puzzles of like, well, like here's a tower, and there's binoculars kind of pointing at 3 different platforms that are way far away. There's no way we can see each other through these. So I'm going to have to stay here, and you're going to have to go to each platform. I'm going to have to try to see you through these telescopes and see what you're trying to communicate to me from far away. It gets to a point where it's like, bro, you have to separate. Like, you are never always going to be in the same place. And the game really takes advantage of that, and I think in certain puzzles, from what I've seen, this is really made more interesting when you have like a group of 4, because then you could say, okay, you group of 2 over here, you can go over to this corner of the map and you can do this, and we're gonna go this group of 2, we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna go over here and do this, and you can coordinate using items that you find. So specifically, like, we were walking around the world and we found a set of walkie-talkies. So we could communicate as long as we had signal. We could communicate with each other from any distance. Problem is you can only carry one item at a time, and you have to carry these like collectibles back to unlock these doors. So you can't carry these walkie-talkies with you everywhere. So, and items have permanence. So if you pick up an item and you move it, it's going to stay there for the rest of the game. So it's like these walkie-talkies seems like OP as frick, because like, oh, we could go anywhere we want and we could still talk with each other. But like, ultimately, even though we had that, it was like, well, we really can't rely on these because we still have to kind of leave them behind. We don't want to forget where they were. And then we also want to like go off, and we can't go too far from each other because it's like, well, now we can't hear each other or communicate or see what the other's doing. And these puzzles often require people to be working with you in order. You can't just solve a puzzle by yourself. You have to have somebody working with you. So it led to a lot of like us trying to solve puzzles just with what we had, and finding things that like kind of made us rack our brains of like, well, we don't have to use this, but like we could use this. And wouldn't that be interesting if we used it in this way? And it led to probably one of my favorite moments I've had in a moment in a game. And I saw reviewers talking about this, and I 100% agree with it. But at one point, we had to, like, I had a collectible and he had a collectible, and we had to split up and like return the walkie-talkies to where we initially found them. And I was like, it was the first time in the game that we were like, it doesn't make sense for us to really just like go together to do this. It's going to take way longer if we do that. And it was like, okay, we're going to make a plan. You're going to go over here. You're going to go back and get the walkie-talkie. I'm going to go back to the tower, and I'm going to go drop off this collectible, and then we're going to meet back here when we're done, and we're going to continue exploring. And it was like, okay, well, I guess I'll see you. And we both walked off and we couldn't hear each other anymore, and we were completely cut off from each other in the world, and there was no real way to communicate. And it gave me this weird feeling of like when you're in the neighborhood playing with kids and you're like, okay, you guys go over here and you guys go over there and we'll meet back here at 5 or something like that. Or you go to the mall with friends or something like that. Like it's a thing that it was somewhat nostalgic. It was a somewhat nostalgic feeling that I had while playing Big Walk. This way of communicating and this way of interacting with the world that I simply don't think exists anymore within the world. Because I mean, I can just pick up my phone and text somebody at any given time or call them. You're never really disconnected from anybody in anything anymore. And that's, like I said, a nostalgic feeling. And it's something that I don't even know if Big Walk was really attempting to do that, but that's really where this game shines. And I think that the design behind this game is actually fairly clever. It's not necessarily like the most well-designed world I've ever seen. There are large stretches of like nothing's really happening here, but I still also think that there's enough stretches of content of like, here's a puzzle, here, how do we interact with this? What do we do with that? It's not very straightforward. You really kind of have to rack your brain and figure out how you're interacting with this world. And I am looking forward to going back to Big Walk. In fact, it was the first game in a minute that we were like, okay, I don't want to wait a week for another gaming session to come back around and play this. Like, I want to play it much sooner. Like, I'm going to be busy tomorrow, but like, hey, can we get on the next day? And it's like, hey, yeah, I actually would really like to do that. Like this game is a lot of fun, and interacting with it was a lot of fun. And I understand why it's being reviewed so kindly. I'm very surprised it's reviewed as well as it is. It's a 92 on Metacritic right now. I expect their score will drop a little bit. OpenCritic is a little bit lower. It's about an 89. But that's still very, very, very high. And I don't know if Big Walk is a 92. I think it's very much like a mixtape situation where we're getting a little bit of nostalgia into people's reviews. I think people are finding something that's emotionally resonating with them in a way that will not resonate with everyone. And that's a little bit harder of a sell, I think. And I'm interested to see if I continue to feel that way. I think I will. I don't think I'll say this is a 95, but I'll say it's one of the better multiplayer games and multiplayer experiences that I've had in a good minute. That's for sure. And I love a good creative multiplayer experience like this. So, all in all, I'm very pleased with my time with Big Walk. But that, my friends, is going to do it. What are we at? 1 hour and 17 minutes with 2 game impressions, 2 news stories, a comment corner, and a sponsorship for the first time ever in the Plug and Play podcast. What a fun day. What a fun day. I am so glad it's not a 2-hour episode. It used to be that every episode was like an hour and a half. And that was great. Wow. What a fun time that was. Like, I'm used to the past several episodes being like 2.5 hours. Takes so much longer to edit. Takes so much longer to record. So much longer to research and everything. This was like, hey, 1 week. Not bad. I don't have to do too much here. So very happy with that. But I hope that you enjoyed this week by week episode of the Plug and Play podcast. I hope you use my code Plug and Play for Dubby Energy products. That'll give me 10% off of your order. That's wonderful. Order your Chainsaw Man energy drink today. Have a good time with that. Play long gaming sessions. Isn't that good? Wouldn't that be cool? But yeah, this has been a fun episode. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be headed off to Mexico. Have a little vacay, a little summer getaway, and I'll be thinking about you though. Don't worry, I'll be thinking about you. And I hope that you're having a good week, you're having a good day, you're having a good month, you're playing some good games, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.